So let's start here. I want to start with a quote from your book that I really, really like. So I just love this quote. Love her or hate her, here was a woman who worked her entire life to conform to society's expectations of how likable she needed to be in order to be accepted, only to lose to a clown in the end. And you're talking about Hillary. I just think that's one of the sweetest, wisest things anyone's ever said about Hillary.
Aww.
Yeah, no, seriously. And then you say this, but in the aftermath of that traumatizing election, something cool happened. Women everywhere stopped giving a shit about being likable. I'd like you to expand on that for me a little bit.
I do think that the tenor of that election and the outcome did just kind of open the floodgate to women perhaps feeling more emboldened to put it all out there. You know, the Me Too movement coming off like the backs of that time, it feels somewhat connected.
Yeah.
And I think kind of when you're backed up against the wall, you're a little more fearless than normally. And I do think that in like that 2017 climate, it doesn't feel like it was long ago, but I guess it was 6 years ago. I think it emboldened women.
Yeah. It's crazy to think it was that long ago. It feels like yesterday, but it also feels like a really long time ago, too, in a certain way.
Yeah.
It feels like we've aged a lot as a culture since then.
We have. We've had a pandemic. We've had a attempted coup. We've aged a lot.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, now remind me, you did, I hope I'm getting the order of this right. You did a show called Soft Focus for Comedy Central's Adult Swim, and then you did Indefensible for Sundance?
No, it's for... So Soft Focus was for Adult Swim, which is a separate network than Comedy Central.
Oh, okay.
It's the nighttime of Cartoon Network. It's kind of, they're all crazy. But yeah, I did a show called, I worked behind the scenes of The Daily Show, which was on Comedy Central. And then I had my own show after Trump became president on Adult Swim called Soft Focus. That we did 2 specials. And then we were about to do a third. And then the pandemic happened right when we entered pre-production. And so that got sidelined. And then the network kind of restructured, and the people that really brought me in and championed the show left. And then the show kind of just didn't get picked up, which I think happens a lot to a lot of people in this industry with all the kind of changing in executives. And then I got an opportunity to work on a show with AMC Plus, and that's Indefensible, and we shot 2 seasons of that.
2 seasons. So how many shows?
Well, it's technically 1 season, but in 2 different years.
Okay.
Which is, I have no comment on that.
Okay. All right. And so do you have projects lined up, or the book is coming out, or you're going to see what happens after that?
The book is coming out. I have a couple things I'm developing, but I'm not scheduled to shoot anything at the moment. Yeah. Okay.
And who was your biggest get, do you think, on those interview shows that you did?
I think Gloria Allred, I would have to say, probably, because I can't believe. She sat down on Indefensible. She sat down with me on Indefensible. That's an easier show to get people to sit down with you because it's like true crime adjacent. It's not comedy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say I didn't think we were going to get Gloria Allred, and we did.
Uh-huh.
Then again, she makes herself very available to public appearances.
Right.
So maybe she wasn't the biggest get. John McAfee on my Soft Focus, I was kind of shocked that he sat down with me.
I was shocked too, and I'm shocked at the footage you got. And I'm wondering how you prepare for something like that. It seems like you sit there you're so calm. You must role play and prepare like crazy to go on there and be so calm with a lunatic like him.
No, I was probably foolishly calm with him. I didn't know that he had 5 gunmen, like armed guards, I should say armed guards, not gunmen, but whatever. He had 5 guys with guns. Kind of one of them at one point was like pointed at me.
Right.
I think because I'm not around guns a lot, it just doesn't even register that they're real.
Huh.
And I also thought, he's running for president at the time that I sat down with him, so I didn't think he was going to do anything too crazy because he was running for president. So I wasn't totally scared.
Right.
But yeah, I didn't prepare. I mean, we prepared in the sense that there were questions that I had written in advance that I knew I was going to ask him. But then there's a lot of improv involved too.
Right. And do you count?
But I also, I've been a producer for 3 years behind the scenes on like the Daily Show, so I kind of had that experience under my belt in terms of like knowing what to expect or what we need to get for it to be a good piece.
Yeah. So what's your favorite memory of being a producer at the Daily Show? Do you have some high points there?
Yeah. I remember one of the first pieces I did that I think we really hit a home run. It was Sam B. It was my first real piece, and it was about women in the military. And there was a ban on women serving on the front lines. And I thought it was a civil rights issue. I pitched it to my team. They were like, well, it kind of maybe makes sense, but maybe you're right. You and Sam can go make that piece. And Sam agreed with me. And then in the middle of production, Leon Panetta actually lifted the ban on women in combat.
Uh-huh.
And so the story changed from we're advocating for these people to, oh shit, this is now women can serve on the front line.
Right.
And the piece, it just really articulated that the front lines are all of Afghanistan. And when you have these retrograde laws in the military, it makes everybody less safe. And when you have women not able to serve on the front lines, they're treated as second-class citizens. And that the definition of war is not what it was 50 years ago. And then it was also funny. And it was just a really funny, cool piece. And I think John shook my hand after that piece, and I just remember feeling so proud and feeling like we had made a type of comedy that really isn't seen a lot in political comedy. Yeah. And it was like this kind of feminist segment, and I think it came out before like Schumer Show or around that time. Prior to that, there wasn't a lot of like feminist comedy on Comedy Central, so I was really proud of it. It's called Military Brohesion, starring Sam B. And I was a producer on it. A lot of those clips that they took down, but if you can find that one, it's a great segment. Okay.
And do you know the story behind getting Giuliani to appear in the Borat movie?
I do.
You're great in the book about what stupid questions journalists ask you. What kind of questions should journalists be asking comics more?
That's so funny. I didn't even think about the consequences of writing about that on future interviews. I think it's not as much as it used to be, and that's actually not true because I did that interview with Isaac Chotiner, and he, in his defense, prepped me that it was going to be about Louis, and I was promoting episode 2 of Self Focus, so I was like, I'll do anything in the New Yorker.
Right.
I think when you're as a journalist, when you're asking questions and you're not like a comedy journalist, or like you're not like messing with the form. If you're just straight asking questions, just ask yourself, would I ask a guy the same question I'm asking this female performer, or vice versa, or whatever? I think that always will keep you in check.
Yeah. And there's that wonderful passage in your book where you ask the questions that you've been asked to these male comics. Was there anything you left on the cutting room floor in that passage? I just found that so hilarious.
No, there's a couple things. I do feel bad for Patton and Jim Gaffigan because both of their interviews were via email. So I think and I say that in the interview, like I know Jim felt a little stiffer than he is because he just answered my questions via email. And then I had actually, I used to work with Norm Macdonald on Roseanne, which became The Conners, and Norm Norm was I wanted to interview him as well, and I think I asked him, and he's like, I'm a little busy, follow up with me in a month, and then he died.
Oh.
So it's heartbreaking, but the only kind of funny thing is thinking about Norm knowing that he was going to die, and like telling me to reach out again in a month, knowing he was going to die before that. Yeah.
Would you do anything different or ask any different questions today if you got to do that sequence over again?
I mean, I recorded that last year, so
yeah.
No, I mean, it would have been fun to film it if they had let me.
Yeah.
But it was nerve-wracking because these are all guys that I love and admire, and I'm asking them such silly questions, but they got it, and I hope that, you know, I recorded the conversations that we had, and I think I can't tell if the written form captures how funny they were, and had like that discomfort that is like so signature to those videos, that even when you're talking to people who know what you're doing, and there were just these funny moments. Like I remember when I asked John about Louis, like he had like a guttural laugh.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can't capture that like in a written interview.
Well, I laughed out loud during most of it, and I could really tell that Stewart himself was really laughing too.
Okay.
What do you think most people get wrong about the craft of comedy?
Okay. I think in all entertainment, the editors and the director, but really like editors and producers, I think are so unsung, and they're so instrumental to making comedy work, particularly in the type of comedy that I love to do, like the Borat style comedy. It really is a team effort. There's so much that goes into making these things, from like casting the people that you end up talking to in unscripted ways. Like it is very scripted, the unscripted comedy stuff, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I feel like Borat sort of, he's made that very clear.
Sasha's definitely made that clear, but I think like, I'm just trying to think like in terms of, I mean, editors I just think are such unsung heroes in all entertainment, particularly comedy, because comedy really is like this rhythm. I remember like I made videos online. I've been doing it for years, and I worked for Vice and Nat Geo as well, and I have some content online that just kind of falls flat because the edit, like it got lost in translation or whatever. And I think that one thing in terms of comedic videos is that editing is so critical in the comedy working.
Yeah, you want to give a shout out to some name editors that you think are really talented?
Adam Epstein, any of the guys who edit those SNL digital shorts. John Philpott, who edited Soft Focus. Yeah. Oh, Eric Naternicola, he edits a lot for Nathan. I'm afraid to give shouts out because I want to keep working with these people and they're already so busy.
Yes.
They're so busy because they're like the best in the industry.
Do you have a favorite routine that hasn't gotten laughs yet that you keep polishing?
I stepped away from stand-up for just a minute with the baby,
so
I have to go back into doing that and trying to kind of figure out what I have to say in terms of stand-up. But I do have all this content that I kind of posted online that I'm just working with someone right now who's helping me put stuff on TikTok, which is like the silliest sentence, but I just can't go on TikTok. So I have this person who has been she put one video on TikTok 2 days ago, and it already got 1 million views.
Oh, my God.
So I do have a lot of content out there that I think people just haven't seen because I've just been doing stuff kind of under the radar. So we're trying to get stuff out there a little bit more.
And you don't want to give that...
Gen Z.
It's called Gen Z?
No, for Gen Z.
Okay. You don't want to give the name?
I'm trying to appeal to Gen Z,
okay.
But I don't really know with some older content that we're putting out now.
But you don't want to share that TikTok handle?
Oh, it's my name.
Oh, it's your name. Okay. Good. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Do you want to name 3 comedy records that were really important to you growing up?
Comedy. I didn't really listen to comedy records, but I loved, like, In Living Color. I loved The State. When I was little, I mean, SNL, Edward Gorey, which people don't traditionally associate with comedy, but I always thought he was, like, the funniest. Always loved Jimmy Garofalo, Sarah Silverman, Joan Rivers.
I saw Janine Garofalo like 3 years ago.
She's the best.
She was hilarious.
Yeah.
What do you do to psych yourself up before you go on stage?
I don't really have rituals. When I did Edinburgh, like, for the full month.
Yeah.
And so, I would, before those shows, just kind of, like, do a couple push-ups or something, just try to just kind of, get energy up, maybe have, like, coffee, but nothing like, not really OCD about my process. I probably should be. The cool thing I think about performing, and something that I always appreciated, because I was never like a performer, if that makes sense in the way I'm saying it. Probably isn't captured via writing, but more of a writer than a performer.
Uh-huh.
So then when you do stand-up, you create your own persona, and I could just be me. So I didn't feel like I needed to, like, put on airs or have a ritual to get into character, because I am the character that is on stage talking.
Right. Do you want to tell the story of the book, how you came about to get the contract and how you went about doing it? I know you got to share it with your mom.
Yeah. I had tweeted about Brock. So it was during the RNC, and sorry, that's my dog.
Yeah.
I tweeted a joke, like a breaking news tweet about Brock Turner speaking at the RNC, because I just read that the McCloskeys, I don't know if that's their name, but that couple that pointed guns at protesters were actually speaking at the RNC, and I'm like, this is crazy. So I tweeted that Brock Turner, the kid who, the Stanford rapist, I don't know if that's problematic, but however you want to call him, I tweeted that he was speaking at the RNC. And I also tweeted that the bat who gave the world COVID was speaking at the RNC. Like, I clearly was joking. And yet the Brock Turner tweet went viral, and then people were commenting on it. There was, like, a news article about, like, Stanford professor does not find this tweet funny, because people thought it was real. And then people online got mad at me, and they said how I was re-traumatizing the victim of Brock Turner. And then her lit agent reached out and was like, thank you for getting his name trending. The book is out now. You're going to help with sales. It was like this whole stew of insanity. And the lit agent reached out, and he said, if you write up a couple pages, I think we can sell a book. And that person is Robert Gunsler, and he's awesome. And I just started writing a pitch. It was during, I think, one of the variants where everything was a little shut down again, so I had a little bit of time. And I put a pitch together, and, for like a decade I've been procrastinating and not really able to write a book. And it took a pandemic where I was stationary to have that focus to do it. And then we sold it, and the book kind of evolved from the original pitch into what it ended up being was a series of essays. And yeah, my mom was like instrumental in the whole process, because she's always been trying to get me to write a book, and we would have these like walk and talks where she would say, do you remember when that happened? Do you remember you said that? And then I would be like, oh, yeah, I remember that. And I put it in the book. So, yeah.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So, do you have like a favorite moment where you've been inspired on stage and something's come out that you didn't expect?
I started with improv, as I talked about in the book, and I had those moments all the time when I was doing improv. Not so much in stand-up, but, improv, it really is like a drug. I mean, there's nothing more fun than discovering things in the moment with your friends and doing it on stage with audience members in on the joke, and yeah, it was so much fun.
I love how you come out and go, America hates moms. America hates moms. And you actually get people to say it.
Yeah.
Does that work differently in different cities and different parts of the country?
So that show, I mean, I was so pregnant and I was writing the material on the fly, and I also didn't want to get COVID while pregnant, so I wasn't really working that show out a ton indoors, and I definitely didn't tour it. I was producing what would be the second 6 episodes of second installment of Indefensible. So I really didn't get to do that show as much as I would have had it been another show at another time, and had I not been pregnant. So a lot of those jokes were kind of less polished than what would normally be presented in a set of mine. But to answer your question, I think I had not led an audience in that chant, because I think that was the first or second time I had tried that.
Oh, because that's just hilarious. I mean, it's just so hilarious.
Yeah.
I can't get anyone to sing that along with me when I do it.
Yeah.
And I love your bit about how the abortion jokes are like the unwanted babies of comedy.
Thanks.
And you're pretty candid, and you really dig in there deeply. Like, you're just not going to avoid this, and you're just really. I just wonder does that. Have you found yourself having trouble with that material at different places, or do you find that the confidence really helps that material just surge right on through, or?
The miscarriage joke that's in the special didn't really work in a way that it worked when I wasn't pregnant. I think being pregnant scared people, but that's like my favorite place to play in, that kind of discomfort where you know that what you're saying is correct. You know that you are not being offensive because this is a topic that we need to talk about, that we're not talking about, but that is simultaneously being legislated. You've done the bit so many times as a non-pregnant person, and it has made people laugh, and the only difference is now you are pregnant. And so that was really fun to tell, and it was fun to kind of tease the audience for not laughing. And
yeah.
That's what makes stand-up feel fresh and fun to me, when you're kind of playing with the audience's discomfort.
Well, right, and I feel like that's what that helps the audience too, because we just are sort of giving ourselves over to you. We're just like, okay, she's just going to get us through this or something. I mean, it does feel like, it feels like, okay, she's let the genie out of the bottle, so let's see what she does with it.
Yeah, it requires a level of trust, and
right.
I do think that trust is not necessarily given to women particularly, and so you kind of have to just demand it or not be fazed if you don't get it.
Well, it's like that. I think Steve Martin says this in his book. He had to figure out like how he was going to take the audience to a place where they would have to understand that he didn't care whether it worked or not. That he was just going to plow through it, and if he didn't get laughs, he was still going to hold character. I mean, Steve Martin's a genius, and I think that is the thing. It's like audiences are like dogs, right? They can smell fear, and they're easily led. Right.
And I think you just have to be, especially when you're doing challenging material, just as unstoppable as you can be, and that takes time and practice and experience. And
reflecting on this material now that you are a mother, do you have new reflections about it? I hope you're going to extend and amplify and keep going with this in this space, right?
I mean, I have a Casey Anthony joke that's like the only joke I've written since I had a baby, and it is funny to me, but I'm like afraid if I tell it, like I'll have like CPS. I can't, I'm like, are there things I can't say in jest as a mom because of being a mom in our culture? But I don't know. I think it is probably having a slightly censoring effect on my stand-up, also because I'm exhausted all the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But do you feel like now that you were a mom when you were pregnant, but now that your baby is 3 months old...
I wasn't a mom when I was pregnant.
No?
No, I was a pregnant person.
Yeah.
What is a mom?
I'm just trying to frame this right, but now that your baby is 3 months old, do you feel like America hates moms more than you expected or less than you expected, or...
Oh, I knew what I was getting into, and I think it just further solidified it. But I didn't have any illusions that this would be easy. It's still crazy to me, and it just further makes me want to, advocate on behalf of new moms and moms in general, because it's insanely hard, and the fact that we don't have social safety nets to help people in the way that we should. I really don't understand how many people do this, because it's insane.
Yeah, it is. It's insane. It's insane, and it's crazy making.
Yeah, and I don't think I got in trouble for it, but I do think I tweeted something about how I think postpartum depression is a diagnosis that while it does exist, which I think people get upset if you imply that it doesn't exist, which I didn't mean to, but of course it's real, but I also think it's probably overprescribed, and I think it's like a convenient label for people to throw at new moms instead of actually look at the system and how it probably exacerbates any pre-existing depressive symptoms.
Yeah.
Like you don't sleep for the first couple months, and is that postpartum depression, or is that just society not giving you paid leave and not having things in place that make it easier to have kids and to raise them without going broke or going sleep deprived? They're both.
Yeah, I think that's very tricky material. That's very tricky, right?
But yeah, it is. But then when you're actually, somebody commented, they're like, well, it sounds like you don't even have kids. I'm like, what? What?
Oh,
but I mean, I so far have been lucky that I haven't had postpartum depression. I had a pretty awful third trimester. My mom passed away.
I'm so sorry.
Depleted. But I was, because I think I was so depleted before I gave birth that, with the baby, I'm so thankful that you got to see me be pregnant. I'm thankful that he's okay, and I feel lucky to have him.
Yeah.
But just not having sleep, I mean, and it makes anyone crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and when you have a clinical diagnosis, I think it's easier for a lot of people to be dismissive. Oh, you just have postpartum depression, instead of oh, we don't have an infrastructure to support you as a society.
Right. So let's finish here, because I want to let you go take a nap if you're tired. But I love your
I'm okay.
I love your routine about the glass burqa and about how tough it is being a female in ISIS, and I just wonder where that is such a genius idea. Where'd that come from?
Thank you. That one makes me laugh too. I saw a New York Post headline about this suicide bomber woman, and then they slut shamed her in the headline. They posted photos of her online,
right.
And I just that was so horrific and horrible, but weirdly funny to me, because no one died. I think, don't quote me actually on that, but she died. But besides her, you know what? Don't quote me. I don't really know the details of it, but just the fact that you could literally be a suicide bomber, but if you're a woman, you're still undermined, called the boyfriend's girlfriend or something,
right?
Or that kind of made me laugh.
So
the absurdity, the sexism inherent in even with terrorists.
Yeah. Well, Jena, thank you so much for spending this time with me. I've really enjoyed this chat with you, and I admire your work so much. Thanks for coming on my podcast.
Of course. It's a podcast. It's not. I was going to say, do you have any questions? It's a podcast. Okay. I don't know why I thought it was French. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's a podcast. I'm a rock critic, but I have a special interest in comedy, and your book just really was so impressive to me. So good luck with it. I hope I helped break it wide.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Tim. Well, take care. Have a good day.
Take care. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.